everyone, Alexa Dunn here, and today I'm going to be going over some of my favorites from spring 2019. This is my series where every quarter I go over some of the things that I've been low-key obsessed with. Movies, television, some books, video games, and more. These always run obscenely long, so I'm just gonna jump right in with movies, and there's only one. I've been feeling, I wouldn't say jaded. I would say jaded. I've been feeling jaded about movies for years and years and years. We've been in the golden age of television for a while now, and it takes a lot for a movie to impress me. I'm kind of over the whole remake, reboot, sequel, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars madness thing, which I know isn't necessarily the most popular opinion, but I also know I'm not the only one who has it. So the long story short is, I could only think of one movie I saw over the last 3 or 4 months that I had a visceral, emotional reaction to, where I was impressed all across the board with the writing, the acting, the production, etc. And that movie is The Wife, starring Glenn Close. It's actually an adaptation of a book, and adaptations aren't bad. I just think we're at a point where everything's an adaptation or a remake or a reboot, and there are very few original scripts. But never underestimate the power of an amazing adaptation, and it just so happens I know the screenwriter for this one. Her name is Jane Anderson. She is a volunteer with Right Girl. Not the reason I saw or loved the movie, but just kind of an interesting point. I know the person who wrote it, and she's really talented. Now I see why she won an Emmy in the past. I haven't watched the thing she won an Emmy for, but I actually wanted to see this movie because of Glenn Close, because Glenn Close was nominated for the Oscar, and I heard that this was the performance that would finally get her an Oscar, and it didn't, but I really wanted to see it also for meta reasons. This movie's about writers. It's about writing. The story is, it's about a wife, played by Glenn Close, whose husband is a famous writer. And at the beginning of the story, he finds out he has been awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature, and the linear storyline is them going to Sweden to accept the award, for him to accept the award, and the wife going along with him. And you sense kind of this simmering undercurrent of her. She's clearly deeply in love with him, but also deeply unsatisfied with the trajectory of her life. And you get flashbacks to when they met, when she was a student in one of his classes. He was her professor. I believe it's at Smith. I think it's Smith that's in the movie. And they start a thing and end up married. And of course, she's a writing student, and she was a talented writer, and she has subsumed her own desires as a writer, her own kind of abilities to support his writing career. And it's kind of a portrait of a marriage, a portrait of giving up on your dreams or exchanging them for other dreams. And it gets really kind of intense and complicated in terms of their relationship, including with their children. And I'm not gonna spoil it. It has a very kind of intense ending, and it really made me think about writing and art and dreams and kind of the value of what we do. It brings up lots of questions about kind of the value of readership, the creative kind of slog. It was great. It was great dramatically. I was really invested in the characters. Glenn Close is amazing, like a real genius. I felt it was just such a subtle character portrait. So much of what she's feeling and what you're meant to get as a viewer is never explicitly stated in the movie. You get so much just from the acting, not just from her. Jonathan Pryce is in it, and he is also excellent. As is Christian Slater. He plays a meddling journalist who's kind of prying. Great cast all around. And yeah, it made me feel things and think about things. I cried a little. It was excellent. And you can watch The Wife on Amazon Prime for free. Next is TV, the always robust category. I'm always mainlining tons of TV, but I have 3 major standouts for spring. The first one is Lucifer. I finally got on the Lucifer train. I'd seen tons of people tweeting about it, talking about it. I knew it had an intense fandom. I knew it got canceled on Fox and revived by Netflix. And here I must take a brief hiatus from being a little tearful. I'm gonna get back to it. Just to warn you, This spring was really rough for me personally, and a ton of these favorites from here on out, many of them are going to tie to this rough time in my personal life and kind of what they meant for me relative to that, and I haven't figured out yet or decided yet how I'm going to address it really publicly at all or on my channel, except it's gonna come up in multiple videos, so I don't know when this one is going up, but the long story short, my mother was diagnosed with cancer in April. I'm gonna try not to cry. This isn't supposed to be a bummer video. This is all about my favorites. And sadly, she did pass away. Okay, this is probably why I'm not gonna make a video about it because I'm gonna cry. So, a lot of my spring favorites were the things that I turned to that kind of carried me through this period that isn't over. This is going to totally bleed into my summer favorites and probably my fall favorites too. It's the things that I've been turning to for emotional solace. And Lucifer saved me in a lot of ways. Lucifer was just, I started a Lucifer marathon the week I found out my mother was terminal. This is so depressing. But Lucifer is a joyous, like, kind of old school TV series. It's like those kind of fun, rompy paranormal shows like Charmed was back in the day. And it was just the perfect distraction, honestly. The perfect show to watch. I think I would have loved it even if I weren't in a kind of dark, emotional place, but Tom Ellis is hot. I love the way that they've like spun the idea of Lucifer, and it is based on a graphic novel that Neil Gaiman worked on. Just the idea that Lucifer is basically like this vulnerable man-child who has daddy issues rather than this evil devil. He's just cheeky and fun, and I love the Chloe Decker Lucifer romantic tension. I love the entire supporting cast. It has some really strong supporting characters, including and especially the women. They're really the stars of the show. They get the best material and they're played by amazing actresses. I don't know, I just loved Lucifer start to finish, and I watched it start to finish during a really bad time. But I loved it. It is gonna have a 5th and final season that'll be on Netflix next year. If you haven't started Lucifer, start Lucifer. I have been recommending it to every single person I know. It is just such a good show. So it has 4 complete seasons as of now, and it will complete with a 5th next year. My second spring TV favorite I've been wanting to recommend for a while, or I should have recommended a while ago, but it didn't have a new season until this spring. It is a British series called Unforgotten. I watch it on the Masterpiece streaming app, and it's basically like Cold Case, where each season is a cold case, a murder that comes up, and the squad that is in charge of figuring out this decades-old cold case. And the way that it's told, the storytelling device, is it's not just a linear story of the detectives investigating and discovering suspects. It's basically like a multi-POV show. Every episode and season is interspersed with a rounded out cast of characters, and as you're introduced to them and like you're kind of seeing snapshots of their life, you don't know how they tie into the cold case, you just know that they do. And it's just a very expertly crafted murder show, basically, where all of the pieces come together. And what I particularly like about Unforgotten, so it now has 3 seasons, previously I'd watched the first 2, is that it's a show with a big, bloody, beating heart. It has a ton of just feeling and empathy. The cold cases, it's not just your bog standard kind of murder. There's always some angle that, I hesitate to say tugs at the heartstrings, but meaning it deals with, you know, rape victims, abuse victims, that kind of area of people who died. It's like Law and Order SVU. It's those kinds of cases, the ones where it just like, it's like a gut punch that a poor individual, the victims are usually young people that they've lost their lives, and that this team of caring detectives and this interesting kind of cast of people who are all either suspects or also victims in different ways. It's a very emotionally satisfying show, and of course because it's British, each series is like 6 episodes, so it's great compact storytelling. The newest one started airing on Masterpiece this spring, but it is a favorite and it is on my favorites list. I haven't actually finished the 3rd series yet because this is a theme. So my mother introduced me to this show. My mother loved murder shows. And she loved the show, and so we watched it together. The first 2 series I watched with my mother, and then the 3rd series started right after her cancer diagnosis. There's a theme. And I haven't been able to go back to it just because it's like the emotional connection, but it's really good. I watched the first 3 episodes and I have to watch the final 3 of the 3rd series, but generally I recommend it because I feel like no one's talking about this show, probably because it is on the Masterpiece streaming app, which isn't that expensive. I think it's $4.99 or $5.99 a month. I got it for Victoria, but it's a really good show and I think more people should watch it, especially from kind of a storytelling and craft perspective. If you're writing, for example, multi-POV murder stories or thriller stories, I actually think even though it's TV, it can offer some really good kind of tips and primers for a rounded cast of characters, really good red herrings, an ending, essentially a twist that really packs a punch. Every season so far has been excellent. And the depression train doesn't stop. I'm going to talk about the same thing everyone is talking about, and that is Chernobyl. Chernobyl was fucking amazing. It was amazing. Also started airing while my mother was dying of cancer. But that was kind of incidental to timing. It's a masterpiece of television. You've heard everyone talking about it, and it really, really is. And I love historical drama on a good day, and I love sordid Soviet history on a good day, so it's a great day when you get Chernobyl, this masterfully made historical drama miniseries set in the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. It is just harrowing. Almost everything on the show is based in fact. The few things that aren't, the creators, are open about them not being explicit fact, but a little creative license. I love the frame device of how it was told. So if you haven't seen it or weren't sure if you wanted to watch it, I'll tell you a bit about it because I do think Chernobyl should come with some disclaimers. Disclaimer number 1, if you can't handle body horror, you might not want to watch it. I usually don't like body horror, but I'm fascinated by this kind of death, morbidity, and the makeup and special effects on Chernobyl are bonkers good. And in the 3rd episode, so this is kind of a warning, you could maybe selectively watch it. This is like a trigger warning. The 3rd episode is when you see the extreme effects of radiation poisoning and people die quite horrifically. And I loved every second of it. Also something that's kind of hard about the show, just as a warning, there is a subplot about killing dogs. It was really hard to watch, but that's the thing. Chernobyl goes to some dark and intense places, and it's really hard to watch at times, but ultimately it just has amazing payoff if this sort of show is up your alley. And the way that it's told is right in the 1st episode, they cut to the chase and the explosion happens in the first couple of minutes. So hey, Chernobyl exploded, and the next few episodes are all aftermath, and it is until the last episode that they kind of take you backwards to show you what happened. You may have seen some memes about Chernobyl. Honestly, I love the memes. You should just watch the show to understand the memes. They're quite good. And yeah, HBO might have shat the bed on the Game of Thrones season 7 and finale, but they really nailed it with Chernobyl. Like, every time I think, maybe I'll cancel my subscription, I think, no, I will not. They are just, all the original series are really, really great. So I already watched Chernobyl start to finish the first time it aired, and I've started a rewatch of it immediately. That is how good Chernobyl is. I finished it and immediately wanted to watch the first episode again. So highly, highly recommend Chernobyl if you're okay with pretty intense, dark, graphic stuff. It is a little grotesque at times, but I'm a dark, morbid human, so I really enjoyed it. Okay, it's time for books, and neither of these are going to involve me talking about cancer, so that's good. So the first book that was definitely a spring favorite, I admit, I feel like a cheater, but my feelings are genuine. This is by a friend of mine. So I finally had the privilege of reading my friend's debut. I got it off NetGalley. I waited to read it like an official reviewer type person, I guess, but it is Wilder Girls by Rory Power. And even if I didn't know her and I wasn't friends with her, I would be telling you genuinely, this is one of the best debuts of 2019. Best YA debuts. Like, this book is one of the best YA books I've read in years. It's up there with Cruel Prince, which you know I loved a lot. Rory is so talented, it's kind of unfair, and I'm like, how can I be friends with you? You so vastly surpass me in talent and potential for talent. Like, you're already way past me. The book is amazing. It is basically set at a remote boarding school off the coast of Maine on an island where there's this horrific virus thing. It's unclear what it is. It's like this wacky, crazy infection where like it's fundamentally changing the DNA of all the things on the island, including the people. If you saw Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation, or if you have read it, this book is for you if you liked it. And I loved Annihilation. I mean, I was grossed out by parts of it. I was grossed out by parts of Wilder Girls, but I was fascinated by it. It was just kind of creepy and weird and gross. So gross. And I just loved every second of it. It was just haunting and beautiful and weird, and it had a page turner element to it, but even without the page turner element of trying to kind of like guess what was going on, I was just fascinated by the girls and their personalities, how kind of like rough they were. There's some multi-POV action going on, kind of the extremes to which all the characters are pushed, like when essentially your body is changing and you have a ridge of bone on your back, or your hand is turned into like a silver saw. One character, her eye like swells up and she can feel something moving in her face. It's so gross. Like, when these things happen and you're starving because there's not enough food and you're trapped on an island, shit goes down. This book has also been compared to Lord of the Flies, so it was just so good. It was so good. It was like a mix of the thriller, pacey thriller stuff I like with the speculative sci-fi twist, and then just really beautiful prose, but not too pretentious. I like beautiful, but not pretentious. And I really loved Wilder Girls. I also think the cover is like to die for, so. And the second book that was a spring favorite, I just read it a few days ago, but it was that good. And it is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This is one of the best, like most genuine 5-star thriller reads I've read in a while. It was just so great. It was immersive, it was pacey, it was a little gothic, which I like. It was very creepy. It had an end that packed a lot of power, but mostly it was just a genuinely engrossing, well-written thriller. And you gotta give props to those when you read them. It didn't feel belabored at all, and I was super immersed in it. Riley Sager is a low-key new favorite author for me, and I already went ahead and purchased his previous book, Final Girls, and I'll probably read the second one as well, and I'm halfway through Final Girls. So just, I wanted to throw this into my favorites because it's such, you know, only a few times a year is it that you find it kind of like a new go-to author, and I think this is like a new go-to author for me. So Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, which is about a poor girl. She's an orphan. Her parents have died. There was a lot of parent death in a lot of media I've read lately, and it wasn't even intentional. Did you know how much parent death there is in everything? She's an orphan, basically, and she's destitute because her boyfriend cheated on her, so she had to leave her apartment, and she lost her job. She lost her job and found her boyfriend cheating on the same day. That classic. And she answers an ad for an apartment sitter in this fancy building called the Bartholomew. And as soon as she moves in, things seem kind of creepy. And that's where the Gothic rolls in. It's this old, opulent building, this too good to be true apartment sitting gig. She meets another apartment sitter on the first day, and 2 days later she disappears. And so the main thrust of the narrative is the main character Jules trying to figure out what happened to Ingrid and what is going on at the Bartholomew. I was totally engrossed, and I can definitely see this book working super well as a movie or like a limited series or even a TV series. It reminded me a little bit of that old show on ABC that didn't even last a season, Park Avenue 666 or something like that. The one where the woman moves into this opulent apartment building in New York and it turns out it's like controlled by the devil and it's like hell. This is not that. It's not literally like that, but it had the elements of like the kind of creepy emptiness of the opulent building and the rich residents who are a little secretive, and I loved every single second of it. And next is gaming! I found a new game to be low-key obsessed with this spring, and it is Tropico 6. It basically combined everything I love about strategy games in one game. And this is, of course, Tropico 6, and I'm like, how did I not know about the series until 6? There have been 5 games before this, but it essentially combines Sim City, like city builders, with the strategy of Civ 5, of the Civilization series, but it's not turn-based, so that's what I liked, that it was like, it had the political strategy and like city building strategy of Civ, but without it being turn-based. You are basically the dictator of Banana Republic that is very clearly meant to be like Cuba, and you basically have to meet challenges and run your Banana Republic and make lots of different political decisions and economic decisions and decide whether you're gonna go full communist dictator or try to run it like a democracy, and there are just lots of variables, but you're also placing buildings and like mining things, and I loved it. I disappeared down a hole on that one a lot while I was drafting my thriller, actually. It took some writing time away, but no regrets at all. So it's definitely a new favorite. I just sunk tons and tons of hours into it. If the way I've described it sounds like fun to you, I definitely recommend it. It's not an astronomically expensive game. I don't remember what I paid for it, but I remember when I bought it thinking, oh, this isn't super expensive like a Fallout is. Reasonably priced with hours and hours and hours of really satisfying gameplay. You do different scenarios, so like you'll open up a map and it'll be like, your goal is this. And you kind of have to pivot your gameplay to like match the scenarios and meet the challenges, which I ended up really liking because I tend to fall into a real rut with my gameplay, especially like when I play Civ 5 or Civ 6, where like I make the same choices over and over again because there are like certain things that I like. And what I liked about the challenge scenarios in Tropico 6 is that I couldn't default to playing like a democracy, playing like capitalism. In some of the scenarios, I had to really go full socialism in order to win the scenario, and it was kind of fun pushing myself. So yeah, highly recommend Tropico 6. Next, briefly, is makeup, and I just have one thing for spring favorites for makeup, but it's a pretty important one, and that is I found another Kat Von D tattoo liner dupe, which is very important because she's canceled. We can't buy her. I just can't support an anti-vaxxer. So it is new from Sephora. It is Sephora Brush Tip Liquid Liner. I saw this in the store one day. I think it was in either April or May, and I was like, I think it's a Kat Von D dupe, and I bought it, and I was right, it is. So it is $14, very reasonably priced. The Kat Von D liner, I believe, was $20 before, and the other dupe that I have for this, which is the Epic liner by NYX, is about $9. But this definitely makes some improvements on the NYX Epic liner, although it's kind of like pros and cons. I'm still using my Epic liner a lot of the time, but this is a really great additional one for my roster because I like brush tip eyeliner. So my main kind of thoughts on this one, it's a favorite because it's gonna be a good functional dupe replacement for the tattoo liner. Draws a really nice thin line, pretty easy to control, though it's not as kind of flowy as the NYX Epic liner, if that makes sense, or even as the tattoo liner. Like, you don't get quite as much coming out, but that helps with the precision and the control. I found it was really easy to do my wings with this one, but a different kind of wing that I do with the Epic liner. When I use the Epic liner, because it's inkier, I do like a swoop. With this one, I was more like drawing the wing like a little at a time, and both are perfectly good techniques. And really, technically, my wings looked better with this one, which brings me to the primary difference between them as two dupes at two slightly different price points. This one is not kidding about being waterproof, and it is incredibly long wear, which means it's hard to take off. That is the primary difference. My NYX Epic liner just comes off easier at the end of the day. I need less makeup remover and less kind of scrubbing at my eye to get the NYX liner off. The Sephora one, I needed more makeup remover, and I had to work a lot harder to get it off, which led to a little bit of irritation because I had to scrub a bit more. But to that end, this is my new go-to for when I need my black eyeliner to last all day without getting oily and smudgy. in the wing area, which the NYX liner does have a tendency to do if I wear it for too long. But I'm still kind of going to my NYX liner for shorter periods of time. Like when I'm just filming a video, I don't need my wing liner to last for 10 to 12 hours. So this is like my new event eyeliner, and then the NYX is kind of like my I need to look okay on camera liner. But really good find. I know a lot of you love makeup and also like wing liner. Even if you don't normally do brush tip liner, if you do felt tip liner and you're curious, I do highly recommend it. What I like about brush tip black liner is that I find that the felt liners that I get, the very end will get kind of like bent, and I can't get as crisp a line from those felt tip liners like the Stila liners after a couple uses. So I find that the brush tips like give me the same performance the whole time until it dries up. And last but not least, my spring favorites for the miscellaneous category. This is all the random things that I found great. And the first spring favorite is Second Star candles. So if you've been with the channel for a while, you might remember this, that I was in the Second Star book box, and when I was in the book box, they made a delicious candle for my book called Aboard the Rochester, which I have right here. This is apparently their best-selling candle, and I know why. I love it. Oh, I love this candle. This is actually a new one that I bought because I've been really stingy with the one I got in my book box. I've been trying to make it last as long as possible because I love the scent so much, and it burns really, really clean. It's got this wonderful wood wick. It's one of my favorite things about Second Star candles. The wood wick, it kind of crackles, but also I just get a really nice even burn on these. Oh, and they're so aromatic, not just in the glass jar, but I've gotten some bookish candles where I was just honestly super disappointed with how they actually burned in my home. The wick would get all clumpy, they wouldn't burn evenly, and in many cases, I didn't really get much smell from them in the actual house. These candles, when I'm burning them, and especially after I've blown them out, I get a nice aromatic scent from these that linger until the next day. It's great. So Second Star had a big anniversary sale where they brought back candles like Aboard the Rochester and introduced a bunch of new candles, and actually Second Star no longer does book boxes because they're now focusing on their candle business because it was overwhelmingly the most successful part of the business. And oh, honestly, Second Star has a talent for candles, so I totally understand. Aboard the Rochester is blackberry, spice, and sage. So if you're a bookish candle person, it's not just that this candle was for my book, that is incidental. This is one of the best candles I've ever owned. It's just like, oh, fruity and spicy and musky, and oh, I just love everything about this candle. But during the sale, I decided to buy a bunch of the other candles. So I got Shipping It. It smells like honeydew, watermelon, and lemongrass. I got this one because I love lemongrass. I haven't burned this one yet, but it smells really, really nice in the jar. This is like a sweet, fruity candle. This is gonna be good for summer. Then I got Book Club, which is blackcurrant, red wine, and amber. It's kind of, it does make me think of like a library. Like it has like a pages smell to it. I've been burning this one a lot this week. This kind of just like, it isn't the strongest smell. It's kind of a nice mellow smell. And then lastly, my new favorite candle, second to the Aboard the Rochester, is Fairytales. It is orange peel, apple, and clove. Oh, it's fall in a candle. This is like East Coast pumpkin patch, warm apple cider. Oh, I love this. This is gonna be a new favorite, like meaning as soon as this burns down super far, I'm gonna buy another one of these. So my overwhelming recommendations from Second Star Candles, and I'll link to everything down below. I recommend you get Aboard the Rochester, and I recommend you get Fairytales for sure. And of course, browse their inventory and pick up anything else that strikes your fancy, but for me, these are the home run winners. And the candles aren't that expensive. During the sale, I think I got, it was like buy two, get one free, and I think they were $15 each, but don't quote me on that. I'll put more information down below. But generally, the pricing is on par with any of those bookish candles that you might purchase from Etsy and so on, and I just think the quality is above and beyond. You get the glass jar, the wood wick, they're soy candles, and just the clean, even burn that you get, and then the smell quality. Like, this actually works as like a room detoxifier. Like, it packs a punch. So I just highly, highly recommend Second Star candles. And then I'm going to roll my last two spring favorites into one because they're really one. The first one that is the second one is self-care. Self-care was a spring favorite for me because I really needed self-care. Generally, I'm someone who goes and juggles a lot of projects and it goes really hard at things like YouTube, if you can't tell, and writing and my day job and all that kind of stuff. But I really had to pull back this spring and take care of myself. I'm still taking care of myself, but it was really valuable. Self-care for me manifested in a lot of different ways. It manifested in some days not working on my book because I knew that there was value in doing a TV marathon instead. Other days it was actually working on my book. That was part of my self-care because it actually was a welcome distraction for me. I also pulled back on posting to this YouTube channel, as you may have noticed, because I had to, because the last thing I needed to worry about when my entire life imploded and was on fire was, oh gosh, I have to film videos, especially because I just spent the last 3 weeks in Atlanta, and I spent a week in April in Atlanta, as you might have seen in my thriller vlog, because my mother lived in Atlanta. And ultimately, when things get really, really bad, when your life is on fire and your emotions are all over the place, the last thing you need is to stress yourself out about your second job, your hobby job, whatever it is. So the self-care of kind of giving myself permission to slow down and do whatever I needed to do in the moment to take care of myself. And so my third spring favorite that really helped with this is I took up painting, which sounds so random. I was an artsy kid when I was younger. Like, I was in art club, I took art class, and I was honestly not a great painter, to be honest. What I was always much better at was like crafty stuff. Like, I always loved scrapbooking and stuff like that. But something I've always been pretty decent at art-wise is I'm a great imitationist. Not a great original artist, but I can copy things, yay. And the first week after I'd found out that my mom had cancer, a friend was going to paint night. It's called Yay Maker now. They rebranded, but if you've heard of paint night, it's where you go to a restaurant and an instructor teaches you how to paint something and you drink wine. It's a paint and sip night, basically. And she asked me if I wanted to go, and I usually don't go out on a school night. I'm a homebody, I like to go home, but I said yes. And it was so relaxing. I drank wine, I painted something, and it felt really, really good. And I was like, you know, I really enjoyed that. So I went onto Amazon and I bought canvases, paintbrushes, acrylic paints, and like the trays to hold the paint. And I started painting. It's really basic, honestly. I use reference paintings from the Yay Maker website. Like, I'm not original. I'm not a real artist, so to speak. But it has been so therapeutic to paint. I'll show you a few of the things I've done. And now I'm gonna, like, I literally have one that's like, oh, the first time I heard the diagnosis painting. Oh, it's terminal painting, which is so weird and so depressing. But regardless, I'm just really enjoying it. I find it so relaxing to paint while I'm just like watching whatever TV show. It's like another thing I can do with my hands that isn't the computer, because it allows my brain to kind of chill in a way that I'm not chilling when I'm like on Twitter. So I've just found painting really relaxing. So I just want to show you a few, and I'll start with my favorite one, which is this one. Can't even get the whole thing in frame. It's just roses in a vase. But I just really enjoyed this, like doing all the colors and the swooshing. I really like swooshing when I paint, so this one was really, really fun to do. I'm like a discount Bob Ross, right? Another one I did that turned out just so much better than I thought and just really enjoyed it. I really like sunsets. Sunsets are so soothing to paint. And it turns out I'm actually decent at palm trees. I'm really bad at regular trees, by the way, which is why you're not gonna see a painting of a regular tree, because I tried to do one and it didn't turn out. But palm trees, I'm decent at them. I don't know, it's just so soothing. I love all the purples and the pinks. And I choose things to paint based on the colors. And the brush strokes. I definitely pay attention to the brush strokes because I know, like, I don't like stippling. I tried one that needed stippling and it was so freaking annoying. I also started out with the bigger canvases and then I was like, oh my god, this is a lot of, yeah. So I got smaller canvases. This one was fun. Just some dandelions. Just, you know, oh, I just, again, I really like purple. Painting with purple is soothing, so I really liked this one. Fall landscape reminding me of the East Coast. Just like, this is where I felt like Bob Ross. This feels like a Bob Ross kind of thing. Just, you know, doing my like lake and my trees. I painted this one while I was watching Lucifer. And then I did this one. Look, it's a cherry blossom tree and it's sunset and there's water. Just so soothing, so soothing. I've just really been enjoying painting. I'm painting something right now. And what I also like is they don't all turn out great, but it doesn't really matter because it's not about the end product. It's about the process. It's like the relaxation I feel mixing colors and like experimenting with brush strokes and trying to recreate what I'm seeing on the screen. But also I do take detours. Sometimes I select a different color because I either don't have the color that they used or I like my color better, and it's just so fun. Honestly, so fun. So generally, I do recommend Yay Maker. The one thing I've realized that is kind of a downside, both of the times I've been to paint night, I went to one years ago and then I went to the one that kicked off this new little hobby of mine. They use very basic acrylic paints, and to make it easier for a basic group of people who maybe haven't painted before, they only give you like a few primary colors, then you mix your colors, which of course makes sense. That's the point of primary colors. You can mix almost any color that you need, but mixing precise colors is actually really, really hard. And I find that the ones I've been doing at home, because I bought a full set of acrylic paints, I just get much and more interesting deep colors, and I like the paintings I've done at home way more than the ones I did at paint night. I feel like they're more layered and interesting, so that's just an observation. But yeah, painting, I've really been enjoying it. I don't see myself slowing down. It's too cathartic. I'm enjoying it too much. So that's where I'll leave you with my spring favorites, my really weird, rocky, depressing spring. I felt joy in all of these things, and that's the important thing. All of these things had meaning for me and like helped me out. And I hope that maybe you discovered some new things, though I hope that you aren't going through something similarly turbulent in your personal life, because it sucks and I don't recommend it. So give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I'll continue to make my quarterly favorites videos. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that. I post new videos 2 to 3 times a week-ish. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and happy writing, guys.